We got a nice setup, man.
Right?
We do.
We got the things. We got the things. We got the nice setup. Hello.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
Are we recording?
We are recording there
right.
and here, all the places. I'm Claudio.
I am Matthew.
Yeah, and what are we doing here?
Reflective, which camera? This one. Reflective practice radio.
That's what
we're doing.
we do here.
We reflect, we practice, and
Yeah.
we listen to the radio sometimes.
We sometimes listen to the radio.
In the form of recording voice notes, listening back to them,
Yeah,
taking away some insights,
that's right.
actionable items,
Yeah,
and we reflect.
yeah, yeah. Where's your radio tuned in? What radio button have you pushed?
What radio?
The younger kids don't even know that reference, right?
No. I mean, maybe some of the younger kids don't even know what an iPod is. Like,
Oh my goodness.
Man.
Yeah.
times are moving really fast.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about the idea of maintenance. So that is the signal that my radio has been tuned into, maintenance. This is
Maintenance of
There we go.
Okay.
That is the right way to think.
Okay.
So not maintenance of software, because we're very clear about that. This is something that we're very diligent about doing. We're always looking at the state of where things are in our software, where things are broken. We have logs. We have very, somewhat accurate ways of tracking the state of the project and how we, in terms of how we maintain it and how we continue to refine it. But I'm thinking of maintenance in terms of things outside of the software world.
Okay.
Relationships, the tools we use. I have a weed eater, and I've had it maybe 6 or 7 years, and it has been very, very reliable. It still is. I've never had an issue with it, but I go to cut some grass last week, and I'm looking at it, and it's just filled with the old grass that has been matting and matting and matting. So there are some things that are not optional in terms of maintenance when you're working with a weed eater. You have to change the strings. If something gets caught up, you have to cut those weeds or whatever and get that cleaned up. But the body of the weed eater itself, where all of the grass is being collected, that's not something you necessarily have to clean every time between cutting the grass. But I asked myself, when am I going to do that? Because it has not been a problem for me. Like, it's okay, I go to cut the grass and maybe there's some matted grass under there. It's not impacting my ability to cut the grass, but it is still something that we should maintain.
Yes.
And I extended that thought because what I did was I stepped away from my computer. My daughter's outside playing, and I have the weed eater, and I'm like, I'm going to deeply clean this. So I had to get creative with the tools that I was using because there aren't any weed eater cleaning tools. So I had to take a flathead screwdriver to pry some of the old grass from under the plastic and take a scrub brush to really bring out the old sheen that it originally had. And this is not something that is necessary for the operation of day-to-day weed eating, but it is still something that should be done.
Yes. Yes.
Maintenance.
Of all things.
Of all things.
Yeah.
Not just the things that are our bread and butter, not just the things that help us get the check.
Yeah, so it's not like car maintenance where you have the engine light.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, here, there's something that needs your attention.
Right. But
Right.
there, at that point, it's something that needs your attention.
Exactly. It's like,
Right. It's
buddy,
like-
you should be looking at this so that it didn't become a problem.
That's right.
Hmm.
That's right. If you check your coolant from time to time, you don't end up in a situation where you're headed to work and the coolant of the engine, that runs through the radiator to cool everything down. If you're driving and this coolant is low, and there's a temperature gauge on the dashboard.
Right.
If this gets super hot and your car is like, hey, I can't go anymore, you pop the hood and you see the coolant reservoir is empty, it's too late at that point. You have to get told at that point. But if you have been checking, periodically, where the coolant level is,
Yeah.
you catch it. Well, it's going below the min line, so I need to refill. That's maintenance.
Yes.
Reacting to some light on the dashboard is not maintenance.
No.
That's a reaction to something that has become
It's
a
like
problem.
it's the lack of maintenance.
That is it. That is the lack of maintenance. And you're responding to it because you no longer have a choice.
And for things like that, what comes to mind is like using cars as a metaphor, as we often do here, right? So like, yeah, if we see the engine light, that's already indicating a problem.
Yeah.
Right? The people who are like, there are people who enjoy the acts of like every week doing their car maintenance.
Yes.
That's it's just something that they do. They enjoy going and scrubbing through things and all. And then there's people who's like, wait for that light to come on, because like I'm busy doing other things.
Yes.
Right? Like, how do we bridge that gap? How do we empower both? Right? With good processes, good tools,
good practices.
Yeah.
Practice.
Right?
Make it a part of your practice. So,
and how do we make it so? Right.
By first, because it's easy after the light has been flashing on your dashboard to, in response, say, hey, I need to check this more often. And our practice doesn't necessarily come out of that. It is you having a heightened awareness about you not having practices in place. But until you actually put one in place, you're only moving right towards the same problem again later down the line. So how do we put these practices in place? The answer is to recognize the value, first and foremost, of having that practice. What does this save future me? What value? Because the value is not necessarily immediate. Like putting some coolant into your engine, you don't get like this immediate value. What you get is, hey, I know that, I mean, there is an immediate value. It depends on your value structure internally. You know that, hey, this isn't something I'm going to have to worry about for a while because I've done it now. I have not kicked the can down the road. I have not made this tomorrow's problem. I have addressed it today. This is not a permanent fix, which is why it has to be a practice. So every so often, I have to do this. And it can be something very simple as like an entry on the calendar. Check the fluids on the car once a month. This doesn't have to be an everyday thing.
It doesn't, but where I know that I have a problem with putting together a practice like this is that like you get the driver's handbook.
Yeah.
It has all of those things.
Yeah.
At the 1,000 mile,
go and do
this. At the 5,000 mile, at the 10,000 miles, like I don't pick up that book.
You're not alone
I don't
there.
write that out. So it's like the thing would be like the practice is like, yeah, you need to look at the maintenance stuff. It's like, okay, when should I do that? When I do that, what should I be looking at?
Yes.
For like all of my vehicles, for the house, for all of the other things. And that's where things break down for me because like, okay, for the car, these are the things I need to do. For the motorcycles, these are the things I need to do. For the house, like I remember, what was it, 2 years ago, I think, where I had my water heater replaced because it created a whole mess of the house. And the guy is installing, the plumber installing, say, oh yeah. And then within 2 years or 5 years, you have to do X, Y, Z. I'm like, how am I going to remember that?
You're not, unless you capture that information right away.
You capture that, and then what?
You make a schedule for 2 years.
Right. So then at that point, it's like, exactly, you put that reminder somewhere. It's like, okay, 2 years from now, you do this thing. Right. So how to enable all of that. And that's where I would like to have, and I love having the system like that because on my personal knowledge system, what I've been doing for many years now is I have my daily calendar, weekly calendar, month calendar, year calendar, and beyond. So when I have something that's like, oh yeah, my passport's going to expire 3 years from now, I have it on that year. That's when it happens. And if there's like oh yeah, it expires on that day, but it takes a few months for you to really get it all. So start working on it like 3 months ahead of time.
Yes.
So you put that in there. How do we bring that into like, oh, I bought a new car. How do we go from the driver's handbook to a system where it's like, dude, these are the things you need to do, and when you start having to prepare for that.
Understanding the value. So in the case of the passport, for example, you're not asking all these questions because you intrinsically know the value of what it means to have an expired passport and having to travel. This is not something you have, this is not a problem you have to be experiencing today to understand the ramifications of. If I need to travel, I have family in Brazil.
Yeah.
If I need to go and visit them, my passport needs to be up to date.
Correct.
So if I know that in 3 months my passport is going to be expired, I need to do something ASAP. So you understand the problem statement very intimately. When it comes to a car, because it's like a black box in many ways, where it's like, I don't understand how this machine operates. I know what it does. It gets me from point A to B, and I know that there's a maintenance involved, but I'm no expert on that. When it comes to the passport, you don't have to be an expert. You know the process of getting it renewed. So it's something that, I mean, like when it comes to even the water heater example, when this person is telling you in 2 years you have to do something, this is closer to the passport example. In 2 years, you need to do something about this water heater. There's a process you need to do to maintain it. And you're listening in real time, you're like, okay. You're not reacting to it, you're not writing it down. It's something that is being said by the expert, you're hearing it, but you're not reacting to it.
Yeah, but I think, yes, I take that, and I think from what I see from my own life is that life is so complex and complicated these days that we have so many of these things.
Yes.
That if it's like with the passport situation, like, yeah, you have the passport has an expiration date.
Yes.
When does that matter? If you're going to be traveling. That's usually when it matters. If you're not going to be traveling, the next thing you're going to look at that passport that will really become valuable is like, oh, now I have a trip. And it says that, oh, the passport has to be at least like 6 months out of its expiration date. So now there's another criteria that's like, it goes beyond when does the passport expire, but there's a trip that specifically says your passport has to be good for at least 6 months.
Yeah.
Right. So then you start adding those things that when you first said, oh, I have my passport and this is my expiration date, you didn't have that trip and those requirements.
Yes.
Now you do. How do you cross-check the two? Now that I have that trip, like, it's like, oh, I've booked the trip. What else do I need? Well, maybe you need some specific vaccines. Maybe you need some blah, 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 all these other things. That's like, how do we bring together these other things that, yes, it's in your system somewhere, but how do you
surface all of that?
Yeah.
So I can action on those items.
Exactly. That's where I see things breaking down for me.
I mean, not just you. I mean, this is a very common.
It's a very common problem,
it's a very common thing.
Yeah.
I would say that a calendar, for example, is not sufficient.
It's not.
For that. Reminders are not even sufficient.
Right.
Because even though that we capture information with reminders, if it's like update the passport, it's like, okay, but you're not capturing all of the finer details. Like, hey, if there's a trip, my passport needs to be good for the next 6 months after, booking this trip, for example.
Right.
We're not capturing that data. So it could be information that's missed where it's like, hey, oh, I got the thing and it looks fine. It's not going to expire for 5 months, but I need it to be good for 6. And you only figure this out once they get to the gate and they're like, hey, this is not going to cut it.
Yeah.
And you're in trouble at that point. So what can we do? We ask questions because we can identify. We've identified the problem. Now we attempt to identify things that could solve for those problems. For example, are there tools that can help us with this that exist? Are there better reminder tools that ask for more information so we can have a more complete picture of what it is that needs to be done? If the water heater needs to be addressed in 2 years, yes, I know that, but what exactly do I do once that 2-year date lands?
Right.
What is this process in detail? Is there a link to a YouTube video or something? Or do I need to call someone out on that date?
Yeah, are there other dependencies
that I'm not aware? Dependencies? Like when we think of the software world, like all of it becomes very clear in terms of how we should handle those kinds of cases because we've done it. But all of the principles that we apply in the work that we do in the software world apply outside of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just don't treat it the same.
Yeah, like on a situation like this with the tools we have today, if we have that information indexed, right? So if I have in my PKM my personal documents, all of those things and their expiration dates and whatever other constraints or things that I have there, and then I have a trip coming in, we can prompt AI and say, hey, help me plan for this trip.
Yes.
And you have access to my personal documents and everything.
And you also have access to the internet.
Exactly.
So any constraints that I may not even be thinking of, these are things that you can surface.
Yeah, like during the pandemic, that was a thing. Like the different restrictions that different countries had. Oh boy, that was something.
Yeah. I remember I was traveling to Mexico in 2018. I was going to Nuevo Leon and Monterrey, more specifically. And at this time, I did not have a passport. And my job required me to be in Mexico like within 2 weeks. So there is a way to get a passport with an expedited process.
I know that process.
Well, yeah. And there is a cost.
Yes.
A monetary cost that comes with it. And, you know, all of the additional documentation you have to bring and all of this process.
Yes.
And I didn't know any of that, but I had to figure it out very, very quickly.
Yeah. I've gone through that twice.
Yeah.
Once in 2021 and once last year.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact. Because of like systems breaking down.
Yes.
Not necessarily like in one case, it was not even my system. The system that we participate in has put me in a situation where it's like, yeah, you know, somebody in the party is not going to have their passports because of the timing of this overall system that we participate in.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do now? We have this overseas trip planned like a year in advance. And now we don't have a passport.
That's right.
Oh, are we gonna be able to make it? And then that was like with the pandemic going on and all that. It's like, yeah, not fun.
Not fun at all. But these are problems that we can solve for.
Yes. So it does take the practice. It does take being deliberate.
Yeah.
It does take, as part of the practice, the reflection that goes into, okay, what is it that we do know that we need to act on? What are the things that we don't know? How do we unveil the things that we don't know? Right? Gotta ask the question, like, there are things that we probably don't know that we should. What are those things? How can we find that out?
A lot of people are predicting that every person will have an AI-enabled personal assistant, you know, within the coming years. And that tool, this personal assistant, will be responsible for those tasks. And while we're in the space where those tools aren't prevalent, like they aren't in everyone's pocket just yet, in the way that we predict they will be, we can start to ideate about what those tools will look like. People have things like OpenClaw, for example, that handle some of these concerns, where it's like you can chat with it and say, I have a trip coming up. OpenClaw has access to all of the personal details of your life. It knows all of the constraints, where you're going, who you're going to be at, and all of these details. So it, as a personal assistant, can create a more complete picture of your itinerary, things that you maybe haven't considered, and present this to you in a document that is a checklist. And you can say, hey, your passport, while it isn't set to expire here, your trip is for this period, and your passport also needs to be good for this window of time. So you need to do something about that prior to the trip.
Yeah.
check, and you go down the list checking everything off. And this is something achievable today and something that is going to be more widespread tomorrow. But we need to forecast into the future to see at a more granular level not only what that will look like, but what we want it to look like.
Yeah.
How much information are we comfortable sharing? Because these are not necessarily things that are going to live on device. This is information that we're going to be sending off to someone else to process, and then we retrieve that information. Maybe there will be local models in the future that are more capable, but
yeah, it's funny. This morning, this relates to my topic of voice journaling this morning when I was driving in.
Yeah.
Where I was pondering, because I've been pondering a lot backwards, like thinking about my past.
Yeah.
Right? More than I had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, like, why is that? Is it because of my age?
Yeah.
Right? Because I think I've crossed that point where it's like, right now, there's more for me to look backward than to look forward.
Yeah.
The time span, right? When I was young, when I was 20, like I had, say, 80 years ahead of me.
Yeah, very forward looking. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now it's more like, well, let me look back and understand a little bit better my journey, the lessons that I've learned, the pivotal moments,
Yes.
right, in my life. And, out of that, what did I really enjoy that I want to do more
Yes.
for what I have ahead of me? And then I was thinking about, and I think we may have talked about here in the podcast, like for me, the last 30 years, because of the year I was born, I got a chance to experiment life before personal computers
Yes.
and the internet and after.
Yes.
So whenever the computer is not working, whenever the internet is not working, I can still function.
That's right.
Right? And because I live right in
that cutoff.
that cutoff where also the other thing I was talking to some people a few weeks ago is that when that thing happened, like I was a teenager, it was like my formative years.
Yeah.
Like the novelty. There's like, oh, there's this new thing. Let me embrace it. Let me experiment.
Yeah.
But I still have the not knowing or not having that thing.
That's right.
It's a very special point in time. And then I look at how technology has changed over the last 30 years.
Yes.
Yes, it has changed faster than it had the previous 30 years.
Right.
Where that was like for my parents, right? For them, things change much slower. For me, it was already faster.
Yeah.
Now it's changing even faster. So
yes.
What do the next 30 years look like? Right? And what are the things that's like, yeah, people like around this time who are teenagers around this time.
Yes.
Hopefully they remember a time when they didn't have a personal AI assistant. Right? So they're still like, well, yeah, I used to do things without having a personal assistant.
Yeah.
Now I have, and I have it, and I use it all the time. But if the personal assistant is not there,
I still know how to operate. I can function.
Right?
Yeah.
But then at the rate of the speed that we have right now, in 10 years, like how long is that going to shift?
Yes.
Where people go like, what? No personal AI assistant? How do I live? I was thinking about that this morning, man.
This is a very common conversation. Like, I too was born in a period where I remember playing outside. I remember we didn't have like we had like video games, that kind of thing. We had the Nintendo, for example, but this is not a thing that, we spent all day inside playing like kids do today. We used to play outside. We had action figures. We would sit on the porch. We would go to the park. We would ride bikes.
Yeah.
And so I remember that time very clearly. I was one of the first people in my community to get a computer. We had like an old Packard Bell, like around 1995. And once that got into the house, I wanted to be inside all the time.
That is so interesting because I remember, like, for me, like I have like 10 years before you there.
Yeah.
So my reference for video games was the Atari, right?
Yeah.
And it was amazing. We loved But
Yeah.
it would be so interesting because you could go to the streets, go outside and see the kids playing, kicking some soccer ball or skateboarding or doing all kinds of things, or they would be on their BMX bikes riding around, or you would look down the street and you'd see like half a dozen bikes in front of somebody's house. You would know,
Yeah.
oh, they're playing video game.
That's right.
But they would do that. We would do that for an hour or two.
Yeah,
and
and
then
back outside.
back outside.
Yeah, because I still want to get some daylight before the sun goes down.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Before the parents say, hey, it's
Y'all
time
gotta
to
come
come
inside.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
That does not exist. I was
No.
talking to my mom a few weeks ago, and she says, like, oh, it looks so dead outside. Like there's nobody walking by. There's like nobody. There's like nobody. There's no living thing out there because nobody's going by. The dog is not barking because there's nobody walking by.
Because all the life is happening inside now.
Yeah.
And you have to ask, is this a good thing? Parents who are concerned about the whereabouts of their children may see this as a good thing because I always know where my son is. He's in the bedroom. But while you have that one positive, he's also not outside experiencing the real world.
Yeah.
So what does this mean for periods where he does have to go outside, where he cannot be inside because he is away at school or away at work? Like, is he longing to be back inside? Can he focus? Or is all of his intention about getting back inside where I can be in front of the screen, connected with the friends online?
Yeah.
There are a lot of young kids who, if you put them in a situation where they have to sit face to face with someone and talk to them, they don't really know how to do because they don't have the practice. What they do have is like a facsimile of it by being with their friends online all the time.
Yeah.
And that is not a good substitution for the actual practice of being with someone in person.
Yeah, and even if you come to think of it, like that kind of interaction, like and I see that, right, walking around, you see them like facing two screens and with the phone like that. So it's like chatting with somebody on a game here, there's something else going on here, and something else on the phone. So when they're like by themselves with somebody else, like face to face, like what do?
You do this.
Yeah.
You have your phone, I have my phone, and we're talking, to each other like this.
Yeah.
So we have these side conversations happening simultaneously, which also means that I cannot fully give you my attention.
Yeah.
What does this mean? What does this mean in a context where the screens are not present? Because ultimately they have become a crutch. Like if you're traveling in public transportation in modern times, like a lot of people are able to insulate themselves by burying themselves in their headphones and looking into the screens of their phones. So even though you're in a public context where there is sort of the expectation that you will be communicating with people who aren't necessarily people that you know, strangers even, you're not even doing that in that context.
Yeah.
You're burying yourself, you're isolating yourself. So, the world that we have created is certainly different than the one that we came from, but is it better? It's questionable. We're getting away from the things that make us more human.
Yeah.
Like I say all the time, like I enjoy working from home, and I do. I have two huge monitors. I can set the lighting. I don't prefer to be in like well-lit settings. I like it very calm, and I have colorful lights in the office.
Yeah.
But the real value that I get out of coming to the office is being able to do stuff like this. Right. Being able to have like these conversations that aren't necessarily about work.
Right. Yeah.
With human beings, people who do similar things to what I do, and trading and sharing and being in community with each other.
Yeah.
Being online, and while it seems like it's the same thing because I am talking to another human who is also in front of a screen, it is not the same thing. It ain't.
Yep. Yeah.
When you start to when you start to paint the picture, and it seems like that picture is bleak, you ask yourself, like, what can we do about this? Because the complaining about it is very easy, as we all know.
Yeah.
But we should be in the business of doing something. Yes. And part of my personal something is showing up, doing the human to human practice.
Yeah.
Exercising the skill, building up the reps.
Yes. Yeah, I was having this conversation a few days ago about like I've been telling people that the way I've been using AI tooling, what I'm optimizing for is to have this kind of experience, right? Where I can preload my agents with the work, right? The job work, if you will, so I get to actually go and talk to people, right? Or like being in meetings with stakeholders where instead of like taking notes like crazy, it's like, no, the computer is taking care of that. I'm optimizing for the, eye context, the body language.
The next best question.
Yeah, the next best question. That's what I'm optimizing for. So all these tools, if they allow me to do that, are they creating a better experience for me and for those who I'm trying to serve? Yes. Yeah. It's helping in that way. Right. But it's now you don't get to write code by hand anymore. Like
you can, but not at work. I mean, if this, I take a strong stance on that. Like writing code manually at the work level, there's an expectation that we're not doing that now. There's an expectation that we are using some agentic development workflow. So if you want, if writing code is what really tickles your fancy, then you have to do that as a hobby now.
Yeah, you optimize your life around that. Like as I've brought up before, the going back to cars, like who cares about the carburetor in their cars nowadays? Nobody does.
Yeah.
Imagine like somebody at a car shop saying, "Oh, this guy can only work on cars that have carburetors." Well, he's not going to be working here at our shop because here we only deal with computers and fuel injected vehicles.
Right.
But if he really cares about working with carburetors, go work with racing teams.
Yes.
Right? So you're going to use that skill. If you love that skill, there is a place for that.
That's right.
But not where it used to be.
That's right.
It's the same thing with coding. It's like, yeah, you want to code something on the weekend, you want to teach people how to code and the praxis and all that. That's great. You do it. There's going to be a space for that.
Yes, but it's not here.
Not here.
That's right.
Not here.
And many people, software developers, even take exception to that idea. They'll say things like, I signed up to do this thing in this way. But we've always, pre-AI even, worked in an industry where there was always constant change.
Yeah.
That's just a feature of the work that we do. We're not always necessarily chasing the next thing, but when shifts happen, we experiment with them. And if they're worth adopting, we adopt them.
Yeah.
And AI in this case is worth adopting.
Yeah. And you know, it's we don't need to even, oh man. So working in a team a few years ago, right? We're all writing code and all. And then there's somebody, usually the team lead or the most opinionated person in the team will say, hey, the way we are writing code here, there's a lot of boilerplate, there's a lot of copy and paste. I'm going to take the time to create a library or a framework so that we all get to write less code for that stuff.
Yes.
AI just knocks that out of the, it's like you don't need to worry about all the things that now we use a library or framework.
Yeah.
Now it's like 10 steps up. Right? But it's the same thing. Like the person who's opinionated, like when the code is written, I want it to look like this, to be implemented like this. Great.
Yeah.
Codify those opinions, those principles, and have AI do that for you.
But those things are It's the work that they want to be doing, like the solving the actual. So
Right.
when we think about someone identifying like boilerplate or very rote processes that we do at a manual way, Redux was one of them where we're like, hey, there's a lot of boilerplate here. I want to not have to do that. I want to be working on the more interesting things, like solving the actual puzzle problems. So when we thought about automation in the past, it is automating the work that we really didn't want to be doing over and over. Now it's like with AI, it is not only automating the work that we do not want to do, it is automating the work that maybe we do want to do as well, because it knows how to handle everything.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the tension is.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I wanted you to do some stuff, but not everything, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like who wants to write CRUD applications every single day? Like you get off your bed and say, hey, today I get to write a whole bunch of user stories that deal with CRUD type of stuff. Who really honestly wants to do that?
Maybe those people exist, Claudio.
That very likely so, but man, come on, guys.
I mean, your reaction to that idea is like, hey, it comes from a place of, that's not something I want to be doing.
That's not something, it's absolutely not something I want to be doing.
That's
I've done
right.
a whole lot of that.
So it's like your response is, that's not something I want to be doing, so I can't imagine that's something you want to be doing.
It's not that I cannot imagine. I do imagine that for people, depending on where they are in their software development journey.
Sure.
Right? There's got to be a point.
Yeah.
There's got to be a point where people look at it like, oh, I've done this for 5 years.
Yeah, I've had enough of that.
It's like, yeah, I've had enough, but it's like, okay, what is the next level?
Yeah.
Why is it, what triggers I'm doing the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
What is the next step? Where should I be looking that I'm not right now?
This brings me back to the conversation about gaming.
Okay.
There's a popular game called Fortnite.
Okay. Heard of it? Never played it.
Yeah. I played it a little bit. Okay. And it's basically the same game every single time, but it is very popular and it brings the people who play it lots and lots of enjoyment. You're basically teaming up with people against some enemy, and you defeat the enemy, and the session is over, and you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. You know, variables change here and there. Maybe the enemy changes, maybe you're against a team of people now, but the basic idea is the same. You're playing the same game over and over and over.
Okay.
But I don't think the people there are asking, the people who play these games over and over and over, are asking themselves, okay, I've had enough of this. What is the next level? Because they derive a lot of enjoyment at the level they're at.
Mm-hmm.
You, and I think there are many more people like you, are always in pursuit of growth. So once you have reached a level where you've done something and you've done it every which way, you're looking to move beyond that.
Yes.
To the next level where you can conquer the next set of challenges and learn the next set of lessons that comes with those challenges.
Well, and I think that is like similar to, say, weightlifters.
Sure.
Right? What can I lift right now? Oh, okay, that's easy. I need to put a little bit more weight, right? And finding that, like, how do you build more strength?
Yes. Into
whatever it is that you are doing? Actually, one of the books that I'm going through right now, it's a famous book called Flow.
Yes.
Author, one of those unpronounceable names. I'm not going to even try it, but it's a very common book that talks about like getting in flow.
Flow state.
The flow state.
Yeah.
And he talks about that, like, say, from gaming, where it's like, that is the reward that we get from the leisure time, like playing a game, watching a movie, something like that. It's that immediate gratification, but are you growing anything from that? That's why, like on games we were talking about, it's like, oh yeah, you've beat the first boss, now you want to go to the next boss, which you hope is going to be a little bit harder.
Yes.
And that's kind of like inherent for all of us. Once it gets too easy, it's like I'm uninterested. If it's too hard, well, that's unachievable. We want to find like what is that next thing, right? I've conquered it. So I've conquered CRUD screens.
Yeah.
What is the next thing? Right? And keep building on that. Because if we are content with doing the thing that's like, I've conquered this, I know how to do this inside out, and I'm gonna do that through the rest of my life. Maybe I have 40 years ahead of me, and that's what I'm gonna do. Man.
I mean, you recognize that as, a lack of a desire to want to grow beyond where you are right now.
Yeah.
And maybe that person is content with that prospect.
Yeah.
That is not something you'd be content with, but for them.
And, to be fair, actually on this book, I was thinking about that because it was part of what I was reading this morning. One of the cases that the author describes is like this person, this woman somewhere in Italy. She lives in the Alps, and for decades of her life, she does the thing of like working her own land, caring for her animals, like doing the same thing day in, day out.
Yes.
And you ask her, like, would you want to do anything different? She says no, because she does get in flow, because she's not doing those things automatically, even though she could, right? But she's actually like, no, now, right now, I'm here now. This is what I'm doing.
Yes.
So I guess if that's how folks who are like stuck, so to say, in the CRUD world, if they're like, okay, right now I'm doing my create.
Yes.
This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
If that's what get them in flow, living in the moment, I can take that. I can appreciate that, respect that. But and I'll say that has a very limited time span.
Yeah.
And even more so, like it has been already the case for at least the last 15 years.
Absolutely.
Right? Because putting data into a database, retrieving, updating, we've solved that problem
many times over. Yeah.
40 years ago or something like that. Like we have harder, more complex problems that need solving.
Yes. So there is, in that case, what people have a desire to do and what they can do given the constraints that they're under. If you work for this company and you want to continue to do CRUD operations all day, then there's going to be a conversation about that.
Yeah.
If you do not want to grow beyond that, there's going to be a conversation about that.
Yeah.
If it were up to you as the individual who gets a lot of enjoyment or gets into a flow state doing this CRUD work, you just leave things the way they are. Because I operate really well within these bounds.
Yeah.
But it's not just about you when you're working for some company.
Correct. So, and that's actually another thing that I journaled this morning, where 20 years ago when I was making the 20 years, over 20 years ago when I made the leap from Foxborough to .NET, right? So it was challenging, right? Completely like moved my cheese, if you will, right? I had to learn all these other things. Took me a while. When it's like, okay, now I think I understand that transfer from that stack to this one. I started teaching and coaching others who were going through that same thing, because I'm like, okay, took me a while. I think I figured out some things that might be helpful. Let me help. But then there were a few people, very few people, who essentially told me, Claudio, I thank you very much for trying to help us, go over that bridge, make that transition, but I will pass.
Yeah.
Because I'm 2 or 3 years away from retirement.
Yeah.
Like I got what I need to get me through this. So I was wondering the same thing about myself.
Yeah.
Because for the last 10 years or so, even a little bit more, I haven't tried to stay on top of everything technology-wise, because like I don't need and I can't be on top of all of that. And I've been very deliberate at picking things that's like, nope, I'm not going to be doing that thing. If I need that thing, I just need to be aware of and know who's the person I'm going to go talk to when I have that need.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I'm thinking the same thing about like a lot of things I do not know of machine learning and AI. I'm like, it's a very vast field. I will run behind because there's no way for me to stay on top of that. And also, like, how many years do I have ahead of me to retirement? How much of that? And then I know that I can rely on, Matthew and the younger kids who are doing these things that I'm not going to keep up with all of that. So finding that, like, what is that sweet spot for me based on where I am?
Yes.
So I was journaling exactly about that. I have no answers to that. Only thoughts.
You have thoughts and I have questions.
Yeah, yeah.
So do you think about that? Like, are you really using retirement, for example, as a measuring stick of what you decide to care about today?
I do think about that. Yes.
I
do think about that.
Like when you're comparing the transition from Fox Pro to .NET and the people at that time who were like, hey, I appreciate your assistance and your effort in helping me make the transition, but I'm good. I only got 2 years left. And you compare that to you where you are now and the speed at which everything is moving. So it is just impossible. It doesn't matter what age you're at to keep up with everything that is happening.
Yes.
I'd even argue that it would be counterproductive to try at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you try to keep up with all this stuff that's going on, you're not going to keep up with anything. Because there's just too many moving parts.
Correct.
So I also say that to say you have not shied away from embracing AI, for example.
Right.
You have embraced the things that you have found interesting and you pursue those things.
Correct.
So that is less about you like forecasting into the future to say, hey, I don't care about any of this stuff. Like I got a few years left or whatever.
Right.
But rather, hey, there's so many things that are happening so fast and so many moving parts that I'm only going to focus on this slice of it. And this slice is a decent sized slice, but it does not encompass the entire pie of things that are happening.
Yes. So that is correct. So the way I've been focusing on this in my mind has been, okay, what do I need to learn that will make me more useful to others?
Okay.
Right? It's like, okay, what can I learn today that will be useful for me? And it will allow me to be more useful so that I can serve others. Whatever that means. So for the last, say, year and a half or so, as far as like AI is concerned, it has been how to use some of these tools to solve certain problems, not necessarily in the best way possible, whatever that is, because I don't think people have that figured out yet. Like, so I'm finding ways to help others with that. And that's where I've been constraining myself, if you will. Namely, I have not built anything that touched any like machine learning type of things or building AI-enabled applications that really leverage AI. Right? So I'm using AI, I'm not building systems and software that leverage all the models, all the agents, all the things. That's where I've been like, okay, do I even want to go there? Do I have the energy, the time, the focus to go there, or should I stay here, making sure that I'm a power user, if you will, to enable others to understand the possibilities and take advantage of the possibilities over, oh, let's just build ad eternum and not really making good use of it.
We're in a different paradigm now. And so you don't necessarily have to build tools to give people things that will aid them in making use of the builder. For example, both you and I are in an email chain with one of our colleagues who is wanting more assistance and building out stories, for example.
Correct.
Using AI. So while you didn't have to go off and build him some program that he could make use of that leverages AI, you shared a AI-enabled workflow with him.
Correct.
That he can take and put into the builder and get the outcome that he would have gotten had you went and built him a program to do the same thing.
Correct.
So he's still able to get that value without you having to have built something.
Yes.
But you did share him an artifact.
Yeah.
That is able to help him get the thing that he needs.
Correct. So that's where I live. That's where I live. It's like with the fewer basic tools here, this is going to bring you the value that you need. That's it.
So what I would say to that is building something that would have given him the same thing he was looking for would have just been over engineering.
It would, yeah. But yes.
And wasteful even.
Correct. My point is where, let me see if I can rephrase. It's like I haven't yet built some software where I build those agents within the software. That's the part that I'm like, I haven't built anything like that.
Yes.
And the things that I've seen so far, man, do I have the energy to learn about all of these things? Because they do lie more on the technical side of things, which pulls me away from the people if I have to go that deep into the technical stuff.
I understand, and I understood all along, but what I'm getting at is the way that you look at things when you see all of these people building things with all of these agentic workflows, etc., you ask yourself first and foremost, am I able to extract that same value with a simpler process?
That's usually my thing. What is the simplest way to get there?
That's right.
Yeah,
that is what
that's
you do.
My thing. That's what I do. Yes.
If you bumped up against your process where it's like, hey, I've reached the ceiling of it, so I would have to go and do that other thing, then and only then would you probably pursue that path. Yeah. Given the way that you work today and the success that you've had and found working with the tools in the way that they exist today, you haven't had a need to go and pursue these other flows.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like I haven't had a need, and it could tie that into, maybe we discussed that a few weeks ago. What creates the need? Aspirations. What creates aspirations? Values.
Yeah.
Right. So for the things that I value, I haven't had those needs because I don't aspire to those other things. Right. For the things that I aspire, what I have, I've been able to like identify the need and then fulfill the need through like the simplest use of the simplest tools that I can have at my disposal.
And were that not the case, you would probably reach deeper.
Very likely, yes.
Yeah.
That is correct. That is correct.
I was having a conversation last night while we wrap up because we're just at about time.
Yeah.
And one statement came out of it over and over. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should.
Yeah. Yes.
A lot of what we're building now is because we have the ability to, and the ability to do it very quickly. But
yes,
does it mean that we should be building those things? Maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah. It was part of my talks to the Side Project Society a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
It's like, now we can build things we could never even imagine.
Yeah.
Were possible. Now we can do those things. Should we?
Should we?
Right? Like, yeah.
I don't think a lot of us are like stopping to ask that question, should we? Because the prospect of being able to do it is enough to rope us into doing it.
Yeah. I like taking the approach of taking running small experiments, right? It's like, okay, I can do that. All right, let me do a little bit with it to get some hands-on experience, to see how it goes, how it flows, and then take a step back and say, okay, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Right? A recent thing, very recent, as of like last night, I was working on this. So a couple of weeks ago, I've run this experiment as one of the first things I did using Claude Cowork, which was something that I wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah.
To create a graphic novel, like a comic strip or something, version of stories, user stories, right? Human stories. I tried to do like the drawing myself. I tried to learn to do it. I could do some of it, but it's like, I'm not an artist. It takes me too long to go from my idea to something that I can actually execute and turn the story into something visual. Well, I explained to Claude Cowork exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to create that. So I'm able to say, okay, here are the stories, create the storyboard, and then, I have the whole workflow to have a graphic novel come out on the other end.
Yeah.
But then I learned like how expensive Claude is.
There's a price attached, yeah.
Right? And I'm like, okay, can I do that using something else that's not as expensive?
Yeah.
So last night I was working on telling Claude to create a workflow, a windsurf workflow, or turn the skills that I had built in Cowork, turn that into a windsurf workflow.
Yes.
Right? And it helped me do just that. And then I'm like able to run the same kind of, to get the same kind of value running a free model, Kimi, in windsurf. Right? That was like when I did that last night, I was like, okay, how does Cowork feel about that? How does Anthropic feel about that?
I mean,
Sally, help me build the thing that I'm going to use with your competitor. But yeah, I'm getting there.
That's an interesting question. Like, how would they feel about it?
Right.
Ultimately, in order to arrive at the product that it is building, even if it is a competitor, you have to burn through their tokens that you paid for to get the thing.
Right.
So, I mean, we win no matter what.
Yeah.
And whatever it is that you build is not going to be something that competes with the value that we provide. Right. At a personal level, absolutely all day long. Like, I have this very discrete thing that I want to do that brings me as an individual immense value.
Yeah.
So yeah, help me build that, please. Yeah.
Right. It's an interesting thing. So yeah, as I work, like I learn just enough of these tools.
Yeah.
Aiming at like, what is it that I want, that I need, that's helpful and useful to me to help me be more helpful and more useful to others.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I need to learn, just enough to get that going. Right. So it's been an interesting experience, man.
Nice. Nice.
All right. Yeah, this is good.
As always.
Yeah, as always.
But we're at time.
We are at time. We have reflected. We have practiced.
And we've discussed a little bit about radios.
We discussed a little bit about radios, what those radio buttons are.
And the frequencies that we're tuning into. And
that's it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thanks
until next time.
Attending. Next time, whenever that is.
Whenever that is. But we will be back.
We will be back.
Reflective Practice Radio.
There you
be
go.
good.